Hey everyone. So today I was thinking to talk about some interesting books which are on my TBR. I plan to read them soon. Currently, I am reading From Bacteria to Bark and Back by Daniel C. Dennett, and that is an equally interesting book. It's actually very interesting, but at the same time, it's quite technical and difficult at certain parts, which is the reason why I am taking my time to read that book. However, once I'm done with that, there are some other books which I plan to read soon enough, and I thought sharing some information about these books might be fun because these can act as recommendations for you, or if you're somebody who just enjoys listening to people talk about books like I do, it'll still be an equally enjoyable video for you. So, without much further ado, I think we should just get started. So, the first book on the list is this tiny one. Actually, most of the books that are on the list, or almost all of them, are actually pretty small and tiny. So, even if you are somebody who's usually busy, I think you can just, finish these books over the weekend, or just when you are free, you can just pick them up and read at your own pace, and you'll still be able to finish them within a reasonable period of time. So, the first book that I have with me is V. It's called V by Yevgeny Zamyatin. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering the name. It's a very complicated name. So if you can see, this is the name of the author, Yevgeny Zamyatin. So yeah, and I'll read you the blurb at the back. The dystopian masterwork that inspired George Orwell's 1984, We depicts a futuristic totalitarian society, one state, where humans have become numbers. Suppressed in Russia for decades, it is a chilling vision of a world enslaved by technology. So it's very interesting for someone like me who's interested in basically reading anything and everything about the advancement of technology, its intersection with various disciplines, particularly law, because I'm a law student. And I do enjoy science fiction quite a bit. So I did get to know about this book because I think I came across an article somewhere where they said that Ursula Le Guin had really good reviews. And here also at the back of the book, there's a one line review by Ursula Le Guin, the best single work of science fiction yet written. And I do have a short story collection by Ursula Le Guin on my shelves. I don't know if you can see. This is the one. This is a collection of short stories by Ursula Le Guin. And I read some of the stories here, and I really love her writing style and the messages that she portrayed through her stories, what she discusses, what she talks about, how she structures her stories, everything is just really fascinating to someone like me who really enjoys a slightly unique but interesting, nonetheless at some points quite cliche science fiction stories. So it's a very interesting collection. I haven't read all the stories in here, but I can see why Ursula Le Guin has her own cult following, sort of. So um, that's why when I saw like that article where they said that Ursula Le Guin had really good views about this particular book, I immediately decided to just, get it, because also it's one of the earliest science fiction books ever written, which is very interesting. Um, and it's written in a very strange fashion. See, it's like record one, and then it's sort of like a transcript of a record, something like that. So it's very the structure of the story, or the structure of the novel, is quite interesting. And oh my god, the cover is so, so wonderful. It's really, it just really, it has its way to draw the readers in or draw people in. I really enjoy books with good covers because I do think that they have a lot to add to the value of the book, right? So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this book. Soon I'm going to be traveling. So I think I'll just carry this book with me because it's quite small, but at the same time it's engaging and interesting. So I think it's a really good book to carry with you while you are on the move. So yeah, this is we. The second book on the list is this Everyman Libraries poem collection, uh, Beat Poets. So I haven't really ventured into beat literature much. I have recently read Jack Kerouac's The Subterraneans. That's my first entry into beat literature, and I have really heard about beat literature a lot. And I wanted to explore some poetry, you know. So Everyman Library, they come out with the best collections when it comes to poetry. I also have Rilke, Rumi, and I think, yeah, Rambo. So I'll show you these three collections as well because I really love Everyman Library's poetry collections. The books, I mean, they're so, I mean, they're so small and easy to carry, and they have really good collection of poems. Few of the best poems by the poets. It's like a really good collector's. These books are like really good collector's items. For someone like me who really likes to collect good editions and keep them, sort of like build my own library. So I've got this is Rabon's collection, then there's Rumi, and this is Rilke. I have read some poems from all of these. So I like to read poetry um, from time to time, not in just one go. So yeah, really looking forward to reading some from here because I do find beat literature, or basically that beat revolution in literature, quite interesting. So here's a collection. I think they do have the list of poets. Yeah, Ray Bremser, Gregory Corso, Elise Cohen, Robert Creeley, Diane Di Prima, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, Allen Ginsberg. I think I've heard about Allen Ginsberg. I haven't heard about any of the other poets. Like I said, I just started to venture into beat literature. I have no clue. Um, Barbara Guest, Leroy Jones, Lenore Kendall, Bob Kaufman, Jack Kerouac. Yeah. I think Jack is considered to be the father of beat revolution in American literature. Uh, so yeah, mostly it's a reputation of their not reputation of the poems, but like more poems, but by the same poets. Then there's Joan Kager, Philip Lamantia, Denis Levertov, Joan McClure, Michael McClure, David Meltzer, and there are more, of course. So if you're somebody who's well versed with, um, the beat revolution, then you would know these names. So yeah, there goes the beat poets. Now this next book is really, really interesting. So it's called The Plato and the Platypus Walk into a Bar. The moment I saw this book, I recently got it like a couple of weeks ago. The moment I saw this book, I really wanted to just rush to the shelves and get it because I really wanted to know what this was about. What is a Plato and a platypus doing walking into a bar together? I was really intrigued. and the art on the cover is just so funny. So I thought maybe, it's worth checking out. And it is actually, it's basically explaining certain complicated philosophical concepts or theories through jokes. So there's, jokes about metaphysics, logic, epistemology. It's not just jokes. So they're telling the jokes first, and then I realized they're talking about the concept. I mean, they're explaining the concept as well. So it's like a sort of very quick guide for people who want to get into philosophy but in a fun way. And I would recommend this book to certain people who are not just completely new to philosophy, but people who are getting into philosophy and know certain basic concepts. For them, it could be really engaging and entertaining. I'm one of such people, so I think it will be very entertaining for me. Um, yeah, so logic, epistemology, ethics, philosophy of religion, existentialism, philosophy of language, social and political philosophy, relativity, metaphilosophy. So I'll read a small, I think I can read a joke from here. They have illustrations as well. And this book has illustrations as well, which are quite interesting if you can see. I don't know if it's visible. Yeah, it's visible, right? So they have such interesting, quite a number of such interesting illustrations. For instance, look at this. It's so fun. So maybe something from the beginning. Yeah, let's see what they say about. Yeah, logic. Under logic, there's the law of non-contradiction. Let's start off with a classic joke that draws on Aristotelian logic. A rabbi is holding court in his village. Shmuel, I think it's Shmuel or Shmuel, I am so sorry. Again, I'm butchering a name. Shmuel stands up and pleads his case, saying, Rabbi, Itzhak runs his sheep across my land every day and it is ruining my crops. It's my land, it's not fair. The rabbi says, You're right. But then Itzhak stands up and says, But Rabbi, going across his land is the only way my sheep can drink water from the pond. Without it, they'll die. For centuries, every shepherd has had the right of way on the land surrounding the pond, so I should too. And the rabbi says, You're right. The cleaning lady, who has overheard all this, says to the rabbi, But Rabbi, they can't both be right. And the rabbi replies, You're right. So, as you can see, it's very interesting. Again, there's like this random joke. Secretary, doctor, there's an invisible man in the waiting room. Doctor, tell him I can't see him. Oh, I think it's based on something. I'm seeing some theories by Kant. Yeah, so it's under German idealism. Makes sense. So, it's a very interesting book. I really look forward to reading it. And it's the kind of book that you don't have to read in one go. You can just pick up and think of reading just a couple of topics under one of the theories, and it'll be an interesting session nonetheless. So here goes, there goes Plato, and Plato goes walk into a bar. Now, the next book is a book which I borrowed from my father, and it has been on my shelves for a very long time. So it's Tarantula by Bob Dylan. And why I find it interesting is I really don't know what it is about. So it's apparently his only fictional book. And I have heard plenty of songs by Bob Dylan, and I really love his pieces, so I felt like this could be an interesting read. It's written in a very strange manner, it's kind of like free-floating thoughts that crossing people's minds. If you're sitting there and thinking about random things, it's kind of like a stream of consciousness, but not at the same time. It's it has a very interesting narrative style, if you can see. Uh, so I really look forward to reading this. I think this you may have to read in one go, but it's so interesting. It's like kind of floating through the thoughts or consciousness of Bob Dylan. It's like there are songs or like poems in between of some line of thinking, and it's interesting how this whole story takes place. I think I'll read the blurb at the back. Bob Dylan's only fictional book, Tarantula, was written in 1966 during the creative peak that produced Blonde on Blonde. Reminiscent of Dylan's best songs, it is essential reading for anyone interested in his creative processes. Initial publication was repeatedly delayed, and Tarantula circulated for years only as a booklet photocopied from Reviews' advanced proofs. Perhaps because this is a book that captures the tone and spirit of the turbulent times in which it was written. The alternating poems and prose in Tarantula also echo the artistic concerns we find in Dylan's contemporary songs, a sense of protest, of verbal playfulness and spontaneity, and a belief in the legitimacy of the street, with all its colorful life as a subject. So, this is also the. Okay. Yeah. I mean, he also won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 2016, as it says here. I actually did not know about that until I came across, stumbled upon this book. Then I was like, oh, he also won Nobel Prize. Sometimes it's not fair how some people are born with so much talent. So yeah, there goes Tarantula. Tarantula, what's wrong with me? I can't speak. So I'll go through the last two books. A little fast because I think I wasted a lot of time literally blabbering about the first few books for a long time. But if you're somebody who enjoys people talking about books, you wouldn't mind, right? Anyways, so this is a book, Art of Novel by Milan Kundera. I have read a lot of fiction by him, but I haven't read any of his non-fiction books. Like there's this one, there's also Testaments Betrayed. Both of these books are pretty famous, and as the name suggests, Art of Novel, this is where he talks about the different narrative styles and structures and how novels are written or how it should be written. And I think he also discusses some of his own styles and what his intention was behind structuring certain novels in certain kinds of ways. For I don't know if he mentioned this in this book or in Testaments Betrayed, but my father said that apparently the book of Laughter and Forgetting by Milan Kundera, the structure of the novel is kind of based off of Chopin's, pieces, how he structured his musical pieces, right? So I have heard Chopin. I can see how he structured that, like the similarity, but obviously I cannot really, visualize it as well as probably somebody who has a good knowledge of classical music wouldn't be able to visualize that, but I can understand. So this is also a very interesting book that I really want to get around to because I do love experimenting with literature, like reading experimental fiction and experimental or contemporary fiction. So, Art of Novel, I mean, he writes a lot about how his styles or what influenced his styles and what influences modern contemporary fiction. So, this is a very interesting book. Also, it's a very old edition. Again, I borrowed this from my father. And as you can see, the cover, God, this is so good. The cover is so good. Absolutely love it. The cover actually makes you want to read the book more. So yeah, there goes Art of Novel. The last book on the list here is The Fuzzy and the Techie by Scott Hartley. Now, it's a very interesting theory by the author. So there are these two terms which have been used in the Stanford community, or he came across those terms in Stanford, I think, yeah, while he was studying political science. So techie was used to refer to those people who were majoring in computer science, and fuzzy were those people, or that term fuzzy was used to refer to those people who were in the humanities department or who belonged to the humanities department. Now, he says that it's a misconception that people believe today that techies are the ones who are basically driving the business industry, or driving the business world, basically. But he says that it is actually the fuzzies and not the techies who are responsible for the advancements in the business industry, or that's driving the business force across the globe. So I really want to read this because law is considered as part of the humanities. So I want to see what his theory is and what he's actually proposing. So I don't know if there's oh yeah, here's a blurb. Scott Harley first heard the terms fuzzy and techie while studying political science at Stanford University. If you had majored in the humanities or social sciences, you were a fuzzy. If you had majored in computer science, you were a techie. This informal division quietly found its way into a default assumption that has misled the business world for decades, that it's the techies who drive the innovation. But in this brilliantly contrarian book, Hartley reveals the counterintuitive reality of business today. It's actually the fuzzies, not the techies, who are playing the key roles in developing the most creative and successful business ideas. Sorry. He looks inside some of the world's most dynamic new companies, reveals breakthrough fuzzy techie collaborations, and explores how such associations are at the center of innovation in business, education, and government, and why the liberal arts are still relevant in our techie world. This is a revelatory and original book of particular importance in India, where students are unduly pressurized to gain admission into institutes of technology in the hope that they will be at the forefront of change and innovation in the VUCA world. Our greatest leaders are those who have depth of human understanding and empathy. So there goes all the interesting books which are on my TBR and which I plan to read quite soon. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, it would be a really great help if you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of such content. And I'll see you in the next video. Ciao!